Welcome to the Franchise Woman podcast, where passion and purpose collide, profits are made, and relationships forged. I'm Rebecca Monet, CEO and Chief Scientist at Zoracle Profiles, along with my co-host, community advocate, speaker, author, and entrepreneur, Tracy Kawa. So today, our special guest is Madeleine Zook. Madeleine is a multi-unit franchisee and former franchisor. Madeleine is also the director of marketing at Netsertive and the host of the Art of Franchise Marketing podcast. Madeleine is a marketing and branding professional who works with franchise and consumer businesses to help build their brand, increase awareness, drive sales, and expand across the globe. So Madeleine also has a tender heart. Madeleine is the owner and founder of a 501c3 nonprofit, Together She Can, which strives to help homeless communities with hygiene care. Madeleine, thank you. We finally locked you down. You were like pregnant and babies and all kinds of things going on. So thank you for making time for us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to join all the wonderful women you've had on.
Madeleine, I just need to recap all that you do for a minute. So you're a former franchisor, you're a multi-brand franchisee, you work for with Netsertive, you found a 501c3. I'm so amazed. I definitely want to hear, and I hope it comes out in the show, how you juggle or integrate all of this stuff. However, first and foremost, where was the starting point? How did you get into everything?
So I went to college in Boston, where I played collegiate basketball. And after I played semi-professionally, I majored in marketing communications. Love it. When I was deciding on my major, I always tell this story. My dad and I printed out an entire list of every major, and he started at one end with a Sharpie and I started at the other. And he said, start crossing off shit that doesn't match. So, can't do math, no accounting, don't like blood, no doctors. And, we ended up at marketing, and it's been, the best thing. So with a degree in that, afterwards, I decided instead of going to play overseas professionally, it was time to join the workforce. So I started, as a marketing assistant, getting coffee, filling pens, all of that stuff. And eventually, a couple of years later, was recruited to be the director of marketing for what at the time was Made Pro franchise. Home cleaning franchise. I had no idea what franchising was, other than I think McDonald's is one of them. And then over the last, or next decade, I should say, learned the ins and outs of franchising, how much I love the franchise family. I met my husband, who is a franchisee. We got married, built a brand, acquired a brand, got acquired by an investment company, and then, continued on from there. So that's how I got into franchising. It's always different from someone. It's, it's here, there, no one plans to go into franchising, but, thankfully I fell in at the right time. And, I still keep in contact with my original franchisor to this day. He spoke at my wedding last year. So
it's amazing the different perspectives you have because of the different roles you've been in as a marketeer, at corporate with a franchisor, as a franchisee, a multi-brand franchisee, being acquired, going through that whole piece. That's a whole exciting thing. Also, so there you got all these different views of the world of franchising. And I know a lot of what you're doing on the podcast and other things, you bring that perspective and those ideas together. But I guess here's my question. Is there some common themes, no matter what your role is? Are there some common themes, common challenges, common things that go on in the world of franchising that you notice?
Yeah. So I think that, some people call me, I don't know, a unicorn, because it's very rare to have someone who has franchisor and supplier experience, let alone someone who's a current franchisee. There's a lot of people out there who have previously owned, but, living in it day to day, I can speak to the labor shortages during COVID or, post-COVID marketing, that sort of thing. I think the common thread and the reason why I've stayed so passionate about this industry is that people truly care about small businesses. So no matter if you're a supplier and selling to, franchisors for millions of dollars or thousands of dollars, the idea is that you're always providing value to the franchisee, and the franchisees always stay the same, is that they want to be an entrepreneur that's helping others. So that's kind of what I pride my life on, is just always helping others. That's why I started the nonprofit, because I think that I can't be the best version of myself unless I'm helping the next person. So I think that rings true in anything you do in franchising, which has been really, really a bright light when you're working, as I'm sure a lot of people know, in corporate America, where the bottom line can usually take over. But I think in franchising, the bottom line usually is, how is this helping our franchisees, our communities, that sort of thing.
Great point.
Yeah.
Tell us about your 501c3. What is it? What is the purpose?
It's called Together She Can. So back in 2018, 2016, one of those teens, I was working at MaidPro, and they were in the heart of Boston, and I would park my car and walk to the office, and I would always pass homeless people on the street, and I didn't always have cash to give them. But I also traveled a lot and had this hoard of toiletries and, the little soaps that of course you're going to take them. Or, the crazy aunt that gives you this lotion that smells like pears for Christmas. And you're like, all right. And I realized, what am I going to do with these? My friends don't want them. Do I throw them out? And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to put together hygiene care packages, keep them in my purse. And that way, when I see someone, I can give it to them, because no matter what someone is going through, whether it is withdrawal or fell on hard times or what have you, I think that everyone deserves the human right of just feeling clean and feeling confident. So I started doing that. And it really, as a marketer, I made the social, I made the website, and it took off. And within a year, we had partnerships with Sephora, Warby Parker, Bombas. So some major corporations that just wanted to help. And I think that it ended up creating its own really nice category, because we weren't asking people for money. 100% of the proceeds go directly to the organization. So we don't have a board that takes money. I don't take money. If anything, I'm putting money into it. And, to date, we've handed out, I think it's 20,000, 25,000 hygiene gift bags. We ended up donating on a regular basis to homeless shelters. We opened up our second location in Philadelphia. So it's been really great. And on the marketing side, the organic traffic is crazy, because I'm very busy these days. So I don't have a lot of time to, post on social. I need to get back into it. It's kind of been on hold since COVID. But I get inquiries daily, if not, multiple times a day, of people who are just looking to donate products and get involved, which has been really great, really incredible, very eye-opening for the category that has a lot of stigma. So I'm very happy that I've been able to help in a small way with one of our world's bigger problems.
Yeah, for sure. And if each of us did just a little something, a lot gets accomplished, that's very impressive. It's consistent with your character and says a lot about your heart, right? And your intention. So at your core, you really do sound like someone who wants to serve, whether it's the homeless community or the world of franchising. Tell us more about your podcast, everything you're up to there, and then these meetings that you have because of your podcast guests. I'm really fascinated.
So I was featured on a podcast with Netsertive back in 2020. At the time, they are a digital marketing supplier for multi-location businesses and looking to get into the franchising space. They've built this great proprietary software that helps deploy localized ads. And I said, you know what, this is really incredible. They were looking for someone to help educate in the franchise space for both them internally and externally, and, you know, kind of build brand awareness. I said, well, let's give this a go, because I think that this software is incredible, can help franchises. We ended up reuse it in my own franchises today. So kind of walking the walk there. And in doing so, you know, I worked with the team and they've been really awesome. I said, look, I can do the marketing. I don't really want to sell to people, but I want to educate and I want to connect. And I think that that's important, because in the franchising world, it's a very small pool and everyone knows everyone stays within franchising. So you're not introducing and doing the hot sell and the hot marketing take, because it's the same people over and over. It's really relationship based. So I said, look, I want to connect brands, because I'm coming from a brand where my CEO would be like, well, what is Molly Mates doing? I'm like, I don't know. You want me to call them and be like, hey, I'm your competitor. What are you doing? And I was spending thousands of dollars to these conferences. What's the silver bullet? Yada, yada, yada. So I said, you know what? I'm going to create a podcast. We're going to feature brands. We're going to see what they're doing. We're going to meet the cool people behind the brands. And from there, I want to keep that conversation going. So we created the Art of Franchise Marketing, where it's brand first. So we feature brands anywhere from Pizza Hut to newer brands to home service brands, you know, you name it. And we get into the guts of what's working in the marketing and fran dev world, because they intersect and cross so much. And I realized that the more the podcasts came out, the more trends we were seeing, and the more similar questions and you know, ideas were being born. So I said, you know what, I want to not only continue this conversation with these people, but I want them to talk amongst each other. So we created this executive roundtable where every other month, anyone who is featured on the podcast, you know, it's invite only. So they kind of have a little exclusive nature there. They are able to join a recurring virtual roundtable, set the agenda themselves. Obviously, I help moderate and all that. And we provide virtual lunch via DoorDash, and they can have lunch and talk to fellow executives. We've had, you know, what started off as an idea, and we now have 60 brands in attendance. And once the brands come, they can invite other people on their team. So mostly C-suite directors. This last invite, I broke Google because I had an invite for 150 execs. So to have, you know, a list of that many contacts, those people that are very important and prominent in the industry, talking to one another, excited to chat, is really something special and something that I want to keep going. And they don't get pitched. There is no slide deck. You know, we've created a hub where here's your the other people's contact information, reach out directly if you need to. We've been able to hook other people up with different suppliers, different referrals, and things of that nature. So it's been really great to kind of see a true community network come together and enjoy it. And, you know, it's not just another meeting. It's something that they look forward to.
That's amazing, especially in the franchise space where people are just so willing to give information and share ideas, and to build a community like that. That's quite the feat. You know, my question is more around, it's more like a fascination, because you're not just discussing what's working, you're also discussing what's not working. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? Because I think that's truly important to highlight.
Yeah, I think that, you know, obviously the economic landscape changes, and so does the marketing landscape. So you have to evolve, and franchising is notoriously old school. So being able to bring in people who are ready to make that change is important, and also important to keep them on the beat of, instead of having 200 brands each spend $20,000 trying to test a portal, why don't we have one brand do it, tell us if it works or not, and then kind of share the findings that way, kind of a whole franchisor pool, if you will, because there are things that don't work. So for instance, you know, employee recruitment during COVID, that was a nightmare. People, how
Mhm.
does this work? This is not working. Or, how am I getting clients through the door? My subscription model's paused. So it's important to note the things that, oh, we tried that, so-and-so, don't do that with your brand. It doesn't work, and I love LinkedIn, but for a very long time, and I'm pretty sure to this day, LinkedIn advertising is super expensive and doesn't always return the best, say, franchise development candidates if you're looking for a direct ROI platform. And so instead of saying, oh, brand XYZ, they're going to go out and try it, I can say, hey, I spent $30,000 last month on that, and there's not a lot of return. So you might want to experiment elsewhere. So it's, you're helping someone save $1 here to get a great candidate there. And in return, you always get advice back. It's not, this, information suck. I just hosted, I'm hosting this franchise home services summit, and we've got 15 different speakers. And all of the speakers work for an umbrella brand, and all of the umbrella brands are direct competitors. So the fact that they were all willing to come on and talk about their brands and talk about what they're doing to get candidates and consumers, without skipping a beat is really incredible, because I don't think that there's any other world in which any industry competitors in business do that.
I agree. I absolutely agree. I think it's unique to the franchise space. As you're talking, I'm getting this beautiful vision of folks coming together, sharing their best practices, sharing their challenges, what worked, what didn't work, this connection and education that's going on. Not only are they saving money and time by not making similar mistakes, but they're being inspired and encouraged by one another. Earlier, you mentioned something about, I'm going to say, almost a note-taking kind of thing, where this then is shared amongst each other. Did I understand that correctly? How does that all work?
So I am the worst at rereading things, re-listening to things. Half the time I can't even listen to my own podcast because of my voice. And it's a lot. It's a lot to say, oh, I missed a webinar, I missed a podcast, and I need an hour of pure focus to listen to this, because chances are if you missed it the first time, you don't have time to listen the second time. So what my team and I have decided to do is, after each webinar, after each session, we provide, the top takeaways in a PDF Cliff Note form and give it to the public to look. It doesn't have to just be the people on the round table. Hey, this is what was discussed today. Check it out. And has a nice kind of deliverable. Obviously, we have the recording up. We'll have the slide deck, but the key takeaways in PDF document format has been really digestible for people. And I think a nice thing that they can share around with their team as well. So that's kind of a focus that we have, is that we're not only just posting these for people to have a one and done conversation. We want these key takeaways to stick, and we want them to share.
That is so smart. That's such a good
It
idea.
is. I'm thinking I should be doing some of this in my own
Definitely.
business. Yeah.
I can't take credit. My boss, Erin Martin, is like the queen of documentation and, pulling pieces of, genius out from thin air at times. So, she was taking the charge on that, and it's really been a great addition to the roundtable.
So I have a two-part question for you. First, what is the meaning of the basketballs that you have behind you?
Yeah.
Are they special in particular?
Yeah. So in high school and in college, I scored 1,000 points. So when you score 1,000 points, you get to keep the game ball. So this bottom one's from high school, the top one's from college. And it's just a nice reminder of a past life that I have. Reminds my kids that, mom's still an athlete, she's still a boss. And also a nice reminder of kind of the takeaways I had when I was an athlete of, it's team first, and, not every game's going to be a great game, but you're working for, the greater good type thing. So that's why I've hung them up.
Well, that leads perfectly into the second part of my question, which is that when I'm listening to you speak, I'm really getting this big notion of you as a community builder. And I'm also getting this other subtopic as you as competitive, like whatever it is that you're doing, you want to be the best, the top at. And I'm not just saying like you for yourself, maybe for you, your team, the people you're working with, but I want to hear in your words how those two bridge. Where do those two meet? Like, here's community, here's competitiveness. What's the link?
Sometimes it's a rock and a hard place, but I say, and I've said this to our CEO of Netsertive, who is, one of the founders of this technology that we are actively creating to work for franchisors. And sometimes I'm not nice. I'm like, I will be our harshest critic because I am the consumer. So when it comes to anything that I do, I go, all the way, kind of go big or go home. So if I'm working for a company, if I'm, promoting a product or a brand, that means that I believe in them all the way. And I'm kind of putting my reputation and my, myself behind that. So when that happens, of course, I see that as an extended piece of myself and want it to be not necessarily the best, but the best that I know it can be and the best that it can evolve to be. So I think the competition there is wanting it to be the best. I mean, I'm so competitive. When I was little, I had a lemonade stand, and the second day I was like charging like a quarter. The second day I hadn't beat myself the first day, and my dad took me in kicking and screaming, and there's a video, and I am 5 years old screaming, "Dad, you're leaving money on the table." And it was like, 7 p.m. in Denver, Colorado. So it was time to go inside. But so just a, very competitive nature, but using that competition to push success for a community is, I think, the differentiator there, where, I'm not necessarily trying to oust other brands or other suppliers or other, figures in the space. If anything, I want us to compete against ourselves and compete against other industries so that we can continue, evolving and moving forward, because if you're not growing, you're shrinking, as they say.
Love to see that video clip on a social media post with your commentary. That would be amazing.
That would be hilarious because it does encapsulate exactly who you are, Madeleine. Have you ever read the book Co-opetition? Came out by two Harvard business professors. And it talks a little bit about what you are describing in your day-to-day life, of how to remain competitive and think about being the best, but also learn how to collaborate and connect and create these kind of win-wins. And sometimes, as you pointed out, when you talked about these umbrella brands coming together, sometimes they can be in competition with one another, but the coming together end up benefiting all. And we can become very myopic, me, my business, my company. And I think we miss what can happen when we actually play with our competitors. We all become better because of it. And you've done that.
Listen, I'm trying, Rebecca. I'm trying. It's kind of a whirlwind, because I feel like I'm fighting that good fight with my kids every day, where I'm like, take a shower or I'm gonna kill you, but it's for the greater good. And then the kids are fighting who could get in the shower first, and that it's that daily life thing. And then also having the flash of I work with homeless people who have nothing, so being able to have a full perspective, which I've also brought to franchising, but keeping that holistically helps keep a perspective on things of, like you said, the greater good, who are we helping, and let's keep little problems little and solve the bigger problems together.
Yeah. So, Madeleine, I have found in my life, in the lives of others that we've spoken to, there's usually a few events that happen through our life that is like either a wake-up call, an epiphany. It could be a pivoting point. Sometimes that's, a coach, a book, a death. I mean, something that happens that has us look at the world in a different way. Have you had any of those kinds of experience? And if so, are there any that you can share?
So I have three, and one is sad, one is scary, and one is happy. So, and again, people have gone through much different things than me, but this is just my experience. So I would say the first was a little sad. I fell in love with basketball in third grade. I grew up in a very small town in Maine. So the team that I played with, we played from third grade all the way every year round, all the way till high school, senior year together. We stayed together. And during that time, we got better. Freshman, sophomore, junior year, we kept getting closer and closer to the championship. In senior year, our last year together, we make it to the state championship. And it was a Cinderella story, and we lost, almost at the buzzer. It was the first time in my life that I had to really swallow failure and realize that, like, not everything's going to go your way. There's no redo. This is the end of the road. Like, you lost, and that's something that you have to live with. And at the time, I'm a high school senior who's going to go play college basketball. That was my whole life. And that was the first time that I realized, just because you work hard for it, just because you deserve it, just because it should finish the story doesn't mean that it will. So that was the first time that I realized, you have to continue moving forward despite failure, in order for there to be a next opportunity, not necessarily a next win. The next, I would say, would be in college. I transferred halfway through, but it was the first time, or first real time in my life, that I realized that not everyone has the best intentions for you. So I dealt with coaches that were very sexually aggressive, and teachers that had bad intentions. And it was the first time really experiencing, as a woman, not everyone has your best interests at heart, even the people that you think should. So seeing that selfish, dark part of the world on my own at 18 was the first time I realized that you have to fight for yourself, and trust is not something that you can easily give. And that is something that made me a little tougher, a little harder, a little, chip on my shoulder-esque, but I think that has benefited me in the corporate world immensely. And then I would say the last one was, I met my husband during my franchise time years, and he has two kids, and we were dating for a while, and I came down to visit in March of 2020 for a weekend, say hi to the kids, come down for a couple days. Literally left, I think, like a snack bag open on my desk at my franchisor, and was like, I'll grab it Monday. And then COVID happened and my flights got canceled, and I never went home. So I went from being single, I have a long-term boyfriend who has kids, but I live with me and my dog. I have all this freedom. I live in the city, to a stepmom overnight. We had the kids 50%, if not more, of the time. And so immediately, going from, well, what's best for me? What do I want to buy? What am I going to do? What's our future plans, to, I need a snack. I need a bath. I have to do bedtime, literally overnight, and became a stepmom to two kids overnight. Was very eye-opening and very kind of real world-esque, because not only that, we were dealing with COVID. So we were locked in, and, to my husband's credit, we made it work. We bought a house. I changed jobs. And, now I have, three kids now, one of my own, but two that are just, I can't imagine living life without them. And when I moved in, they were 1 and 3. So they were very young. I went from, I'm going to go out drinking on a Wednesday, to, oh my God, we're out of diapers, kind of very quickly. So that was, the most recent change in my life, that I realized, you're not only working for yourself here, you're working for your family, and there's other little people that are depending on you. And that's when, I kind of really dug in and realized that building a career isn't just about the snazzy title and suits and business trips, but also now about being a role model and being able to, keep a roof over their heads.
Wow, wow. You are like a diamond. There are so many facets to you, and you have so many experiences that you draw from. So let me ask you this. To our listeners, I know to me, so I'm assuming that to our listeners, you sound like this early adopter, somebody who recognizes things. She's got the Mrs. Midas touch, right? You recognize opportunities and you seize them. Do you consider yourself to be fearless?
I mean, there's a lot of things I'm scared of, like centipedes. Don't put me in a room with one of those. But in terms of business, I guess you could say fearless. My what I like to whenever I talk at colleges and other places, I like to tell people, take that first step. Because, for instance, with my nonprofit, I don't know how to make a nonprofit, but I knew the first step was creating a brand. I knew the next step was, oh my God, we need a bank account. And the next step was, oh shoot, I got to get verified. So taking the first step is instrumental in creating any sort of change or any sort of progress in your life. And I think maybe that could make anyone, myself, fearless by taking that first step. But I think as a whole, I'm not necessarily fearless in that, I'm going to go and take on this big business world. I'm going to take on stepmotherhood and motherhood, but more in the smaller sense of that I was brave enough to start and then figure it out as I go, which can be, for someone who also has high anxiety, can be very scary at first. So, fearless in the small sense, and then I guess just persistent in the big sense.
Good combination. I think that's super advice, that if we just take the next step, we already then have some inertia, some momentum, and then the next step and the next step. Because building a business, raising a family, getting married, moving, all of those things are scary, right? And so you just took it one step at a time. Honestly, your life is like a movie. You know, I'm already seeing this and writing the script for it, because we're talking a lemonade stand and knowing who you are, even then, to this basketball player on a team progressively getting better, to failure. No, movies don't end with failure. They end with warm fuzzies, right? To all of these other experiences as a franchisee, as a franchisor, as a supplier, as a charitable organization, to becoming a mama, all of those things. It's like a movie, and I'm honestly going to have to watch you the next few years to see how that story truly evolves. So let me ask you, if there was a theme to your life, I don't know if it's a belief system, a value system, an idea. If there was a theme to your life, could you describe it? I think Tracy hit on some of it with that competitiveness and yet community piece. But I'm wondering if there is something you can articulate that says, this seems to show up in my life again and again. This seems to be a theme or purpose or a passion that you have that's consistent.
I think with anything, and I wrote this in like 5th grade, where they were like, oh, write 3 things about you. And I only wrote one thing, and I wrote, I get the job done. So whatever it is, I'm going to get it done. And I'm going to do it 100%, all the way. And again, I think the theme is just always working to help people and understanding that you can have the mission and the purpose to help people. And that also means that you don't have to be the nicest person in the room. You don't have to be the most liked. I was never, prom queen. I was, I'm very driven, I'm very succinct. And, to a lot of people, that doesn't come off necessarily well. It's taken a while to hone that. So I think, just being able to get the job done because and despite is probably the theme of my life. And I definitely attribute my success to my parents. I think they're wonderful. I think they are my best friends to this day. I can't imagine one thing I would do different about my childhood or my upbringing. So they were really able to instill great morals and did the parenting thing right. And then, outside of that is I always just, get it done, but make it funny type thing. So at the end of the day, my neighbors and I, and we call it deck beers. Everyone just shows up on my deck and we have a beer and we talk about the shit we did that day. And, they've come from doctors and corporate financiers and, all of that stuff. So I think, at the end of the day, we're all people. We're all keeping it real. We're all doing the best we can to raise good people and do good things. And like you said, let's keep that in perspective. And as long as we're doing the best we can, that's, all anyone can really ask. And just, being kind with yourself, but, pushing yourself as well is an important but difficult balance.
I love this conversation. It could go on for hours, but before we wrap, I want to make sure that folks know how to get hold of you, Madeleine, and to learn more about your podcasts and Netsertive and all of those things. So how would they get hold of you?
Yeah. So for myself, Madeleine Zook on LinkedIn is the easiest way. I'm always on it. Shoot me a message. For Together She Can, you can do togethershecan.org and see all about us. If you want to donate, if I don't get back to you, that's because I'm a staff of one and I will do it as soon as I can. Netsertive is netsertive.com. Like I said, we do digital marketing localized for multi-location and franchisors. But if you also just want to talk shop and learn about the podcast, learn about the roundtables, you can shoot us a message there and we'd be happy to speak to you on that as well. But yeah, I love to connect with me anywhere at any time. That's definitely the passion project. So even though my husband gets annoyed because I don't truly watch movies with him because I'm always on my phone, that's what I love to do.
Beautiful. Tracy, let's do our wrap up of our incredible guest today. What were your takeaways? What was your aha moment?
This conversation was so brilliant that the time just flew by. And for me, I think it's just going back to the diamonds. I really do think, Madeleine, that there are so many facets to you. You really have that business je ne sais quoi. You've got it. And for you to be in the role that you're in, leading the way, inspiring not only people who are looking to get into the industry that might be listening to this podcast, but also inspiring CEOs of so many brands. I think that you are just the brightest diamond and you've got that business je ne sais quoi. And that is my 2 cents.
Thank you very much. That's very kind of you to say. I talk to Girl Scouts a lot and kind of young women, and I always tell them that, through pressure makes diamonds and diamonds can cut through glass, and we're constantly trying to cut that glass ceiling. So that compliment is very well received. Thank you.
So perfect. Also, I didn't know you spoke French, Tracy.
Well, that was about it. That and bonjour. Merci, bonjour. Bon appetit.
Madeleine, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your heart and your what you're all up to. We really appreciate your time. And to those listening in today, make sure to subscribe, make sure to share this video with others. And we'll see you next week on another episode of The Franchise Woman, where passion and purpose collide, profits are made, and relationships forged.
Thanks so much.